different types of menachos, but a person says, Harei alei b'machvas, I hereby take upon myself to bring a karban mincha, a minchas machvas. We'll discuss what this means in just a moment. Lo yovim marcheshes. So we'll say if you pledge to bring a minchas machvas, you can't bring a minchas marcheshes. B'marcheshes, if you pledge to bring a minchas marcheshes, lo yovi b'machvas. You cannot go ahead and bring a karban machvas. Ma bin machvas l'marcheshes. So nu, what's the difference between a minchas machvas and a minchas marcheshes? Good kasha. Here we go. Marcheshes yesh la kisui. Machvas ein la kisui div Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Well, see, interesting this. Rabbi Yossi Aglili says a marcheshes is made on a utensil which has a covering, a lid, versus a machvas which is made in a utensil which does not have a lid. So this is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel Omer, marcheshes amuka umachseha umaaseh, rochshin. Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel says a marcheshes, Rabbi say, is a deep dish mincha. It's made in a deeper receptacle, a deeper kli. Umaaseh rochshin. Rabbi say maaseh rochshin literally means that its contents quiver, which Rabbi say means it's thicker and spongier. So because of that, when you touch it, it moves. On the other hand, machvas safa, a machvas Rabbi say is, so Rabbi say what it sounds like over here is like a minchas machvas is a little bit more like a cake or like a loaf of bread, as opposed to the that's the marcheshes, as opposed to the machvas, which is safa, thin, uma'aseha kashin, and ultimately again it's harder. In other words, a little bit more like a wafer. Look at Rashi. Rochshin shakli amok vaya kalasham makom echad ukishamanich adam etzbal mincha not hashem b'socha. Fine. So we'll say. So we have a machlokes in the Mishnah about the distinction between a machvas and a marcheshes. So ultimately, Rabbi Yossi Aglili says marcheshes is made in a utensil with a lid. Machvas is made in a utensil without a lid. Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel says marcheshes is deep, made in a deep dish. And therefore, again, because the oil has the ability to pool a bit more, so the mincha is softer, it quivers when you touch it, versus a machvas, which is made in a thinner pan, and ultimately, again, becomes hard and wafer-like. Says the Gemara, let's analyze this. My time Rabbi Yossi. So we'll say, where does Rabbi Yossi really get this? That ultimately, a marcheshes is made in a utensil with a lid, and a machvas is made in a utensil without a lid. Ilem a marcheshes the asya archushe halev. So maybe you'll say that maybe a minchas marcheshes is brought for what we call archushe halev. Now we'll say we're going to discuss this further, but archushe halev, Rashi says, is hirhur avera. If you want to say maybe the minchas marcheshes is brought for even having sinful thoughts. Person has a thought to do an avera, so he'll go ahead, or certain negative thoughts, he'll bring the minchas marcheshes. And therefore, again, it's called the marcheshes. Why? Kidichsiv Rachash libi, because the pasuk says Rachash libi. In this case, it's for a good thing. Rachash libi, literally, my heart stirred. So it's just like the stirrings of the heart take place in private. So to the minchas marcheshes has a lid on it, representing the idea that this mincha comes for stirrings of the heart. On the other hand, umachvas the asya amchabui hapeh. Also, on the other hand, machvas comes by what? For what? Because of things that people say. Negative speech. Let's say lashon hara, rechilos, keda'armi inshi menabach nebuche. As people say, his lips moved. So maybe that's the distinction. That ultimately, again, marcheshes, which comes for things that happen in your heart, is made in a utensil with a lid. Just like you can't see the contents of the utensil when the lid is on. So too, again, marcheshes comes for that which comes in the heart. Machvas comes for revealed sins, like lashon hara, rechilos. Therefore, again, there's no lid on that utensil. Here's the problem. Ema ipcha, I can say just the opposite. Machvas ta'asya am chabui halev kidichsiv lama nachbesa livroach. So also I could say just the opposite. I could say machvas comes for things that happen in the heart. Why Rabbi Zayin? Because the word machvas is like the word nechbesa. Nechbesa means to hide. So machvas is for things which are hidden. Marcheshes ta'asya arachushe. And marcheshes comes ultimately again for things that stir in the heart. For things that are spoken. As people say, his lips were moving. So what the Gemara is just suggesting over here is if you're going to understand that Rabbi Yossi Aglili's shita is based just on the etymological meaning of the words. Just want to point out to you that the words could actually be defined both ways. Machvas can mean revealed and it could also mean hidden. Marcheshes can mean hidden, it could also mean revealed. Therefore, the Gemara says, Ella Gemara Gemirila. Rather, the Gemara says that ultimately Rabbi Yosef Levi had a tradition. This was the tradition handed down to him, that the distinction between a machvos and a marcheshes is that marcheshes ultimately was made in a utensil with a kli, was made in a utensil with a lid, a kli with a lid, versus machvos, which was made in a utensil without a lid. So he actually didn't end up learning it out from psukim, but rather, again, this was the Gemara, this was the tradition he had. On the other hand, Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel says a little bit different. So also remember again, that was Rabbi Yosef Levi's definition. Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel says no. He says marcheshes was a deep dish mincha, a mincha made in a deeper dish, and therefore again softer, spongier, versus a machvos, which was made in a very thin receptacle and therefore hard and wafer-like. Says the Gemara, marcheshes amuka. So where does Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel know that marcheshes was made in a deep utensil? Watch this. T'chsiv v'chol na'aseh b'marcheshes. This is an interesting diuk. What does the pasuk say when it talks about a minchas marcheshes? It's a mincha that is made in the marcheshes. They both say the marcheshes is the name of the kli. That's the name of the utensil. The fact that the Torah says that it's made in a marcheshes, Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel understands that to mean that what? That the utensil itself is deep or deeper. Therefore, again, the mincha is made inside of the utensil. Machvas safa. On the other hand, again, machvas is thin, made in a very thin utensil. D'chsev the al machavas, which is actually very interesting. The mincha is made on the machvas. Because it's such a shallow kli, you can't say it's made in the machvas, but rather, again, it's made on the machvas. So that's Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel's understanding. Tana Abanas, we'll say, based on this, the Gemara says something very interesting. B'shamay Omer, ha'omer, harei alai marcheshes, yehemunach ad yavo Eliyahu. Let's listen to this. If a person says, I hereby take upon myself, harei alai marcheshes. I hereby take upon myself the obligation of a marcheshes. So Beishamai says, don't do anything until Eliyahu Hanavi comes. Why not? Listen to this. Misapkale, I al shum kli nikru, o al shem maasehen. I will say, here's what's interesting. Beishamai was Mesupok. At the end of the day, is a minchas marcheshes ultimately called a minchas marcheshes because of the kli, or because ultimately that's the name of the mincha? Now, both say, now what's the nafkamina? A person says, Harei alai marcheshes. Both say there are two ways to understand that statement. Either way, either number one, he's pledging a minchas marcheshes, or he's pledging the utensil. He's pledging a klisharis to the Beis Hamikdash. So Beishamai was Mesupok. Is marcheshes known as marcheshes because it's the name of the utensil, or it becomes identified as the type of mincha? Therefore, if a person says, see, normally a person would say what? Harei alai minchas marcheshes. Okay, good. Then you're pledging a mincha. Person just says Harei alai marcheshes. Beishamai says, I don't know how to interpret that phrase. Does that mean a kli, or does that mean a mincha? So we'll say, so interestingly enough, you'd have to be talking about a case where the person didn't have explicit intent either. And therefore, again, halacha l'mais, Beishamai says, leave it until Eliyahu Hanavi comes. So Beisila omrim kli hayav mikdash u'marchesheshma. So Beisila says, by the way, there was a name in the Beis Hamikdash. There was a kli. That kli was called the marcheshes. It was called the marcheshes. V'dome kemin kalbus amuk. And I both say it looked like a pair of tongs, like literally deep tongs, thick tongs. U'kishebatzek munach besocho. And when you would pour the dough into it, or put the dough into it, dome kemin tapuche habartim. It would look like tapuche bartim, which are these type of apples. Bartim is a place. Type of apples. Ukemin balute hayevanim, or like acorns from a Greek oak. V'omer v'chol na'aseh b'marcheshes v'al machvos. And I will say ultimately again it says, and anything that is made b'marcheshes or on the machvos, almo al shum hakelim nikru v'lo al shum ma'asehem. Therefore, again, Beis Hillel says marcheshes was the name of the actual kli and not the name of the mincha. Therefore, I will say what Beis Hillel essentially says is what? Is ultimately halacha l'maisa, that if a person says harei alai marchashes, at least according to Beis Hillel, ultimately again, what is he pledging? What is he pledging? He's pledging a utensil. He's pledging a kli. So we'll say, so whereas Beis Shammai was musupak, Beis Hillel was not musupak at all. Beis Shammai wasn't sure if you say harei alai marchashes, are you pledging a minchas marchashes or are you pledging a kli? Beis Hillel has absolutely no doubt. If you say harei alai minchas marchashes, you're pledging a mincha. If you just say harei alai marchashes, then Beis Hillel says marchashes is the name of a utensil. Then what you're not pledging a mincha. When in fact you are pledging is to donate a kli, to donate a utensil to the Beis Hamikdash. Which utensil? The marchashes utensil. Good. We'll say weiter. Says the Mishnah. So we'll say, by the way, just so you understand, the Rambam accepts, going back from leaving aside the Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, what's more important for us right now is halacha l'maisa. What is the definition of a machvas versus a marchashes? That's very important. We're going to get into this more. But the Rambam accepts Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel's definition that a marchashes ultimately again was a deep dish mincha made in a deeper utensil, therefore thicker, softer, spongier, versus a machvas which was made in a very thin utensil, therefore more wafer-like and hard. That's the distinction between the machvas and the marchashes. Good, says the Mishnah. Harei alai b'tanus. Let's listen to this. If a person says, I hereby go ahead and take upon myself a minchas ma'afei tanor. We're going to explain this just a bit more. A mincha that's baked in the tanor. Lo yavi ma'afei kupach. You may not bring a mincha that was baked in a kupach. Look at Rashi kupach. Min tanor katan makom shefisas keder achas. We'll say kupach is a smaller oven. It's a smaller oven. So if you pledge to go ahead and bring a minchas ma'afei tanor, you cannot go ahead and bring a mincha that was baked in a kupach. V'lo ma'afei ra'afim, nor can you bring a mincha which was baked on tiles. We'll say, what does it mean baked on tiles? So if you can imagine for a moment, if you take a ceramic tile and you heat it up, you could bake on that. You could bake on that tile. You cannot bring a mincha baked on a tile. U'ma'afei yoros haravim. Or we'll say a mincha that was baked in the literally the cauldron of the Arabs, of the Ishmaelim. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ratza maybe ma'afe kupach. Rabbi Yehuda seems to agree with the other disqualifications, but holds that even if you pledged a mincha ma'afe tanor, you can in fact go ahead and bring a mincha that was made in a kupach. So the Gemara says, Rashi says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, the kupach min tanor. Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's okay because a kupach is in the tanor family, and therefore again you could bake your mincha off in that. Harei alei minchas ma'afeh. I will say ultimately again, if a person says, I hereby take upon myself a minchas ma'afeh, so the Gemara says, Lo yavi mechza chalos or mechza rekikin. Well, see now, if you bring a minchas ma'afeh, you have a choice. You could bring loaves of bread, chalos, or you could bring wafers. However, you can't bring half and half. You either have to bring all loaves or all wafers. Or all wafers. Rabbi Shimon matir mipnei shu karben echad. Rabbi Shimon says, no, it's okay. Why? Because ultimately it's all one carbon. So we'll say fundamental machlokes. We've actually seen this alluded to in the Gemara a couple of times. If you go ahead and you pledge a mincha ma'afeh, can you go ahead and bring part loaves, part wafers? Ultimately, again, the Gemara says, Rabbi Shimon says yes, the Rabbanon say no. Tan Rabbanon, ma'afei tanor v'lo ma'afei kupach. So we'll say the pasuk says, v'chisakriv karban mincha ma'afei tanor. So the Gemara dashes from here, dafkas they baked in a tanor and not a kupach. V'lo ma'afei ra'afim, and not on tiles. V'lo ma'afei yoros haravim, and not in the pots of the Aravim. So we'll say what the Gemara is dashing over here is the fact that the Torah calls it a ma'afei tanur, tells us that the mincha itself has to be prepared in a specific utensil known as a tanur, not in anything else. Rabbi Yehuda Omer tanur shtein pa'apim. So Rabbi Yehuda says, the pasuk says tanur twice, lahachsher ma'afei kupach, to include one additional type of tanur. What's the additional type of tanur that we're coming to include? A kupach. That a kupach, in fact, is fit ultimately again to bake off the mincha. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Tanur Shnei Pamim. Rabbi Shimon says, you're right, it says Tanur twice. Why? Echad Shetef Yasim B'Tanur. One to ultimately tell me that the baking has to be done in a tanur. Ve'echad Sheyehei Hekdeshon B'Tanur. Rabbi said, it's actually very interesting. And the other is to tell me that what? That the mincha itself is sanctified when placed in the tanur. So tanur twice. One to tell me that it has to be baked in a tanur. Second time to tell me that it is sanctified when it is placed in a tanur. So Gemara says, 1 second. Does Rabbi Shimon really hold that way? That the mincha is sanctified in the tanur itself? After all, Vahatinan, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Li'olam havi ragil Omer, Shtei halechem v'lechem aponim ksheros ba'azara, uksheros bebeis pagi. But also listen to this. Rabbi Shimon said that the Shtei halechem, which is the offering by Shavuos, lechem aponim, which are the bread, the loaves of bread that are placed on the shulchan of the Beis HaMikdash, ksheros ba'azara, are ksheros if you bake them in the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash, but are also kosher if you bake them bebeis pagi. Where is beis pagi? Rabbi say, look at Rashi, 3 lines are from the bottom. Ksheros ba'azara, ksheros bebeis pagi, chutz l'chomas ha'azara, choma achos. So we'll say, right outside of the Beis HaMikdash, there was another area called beis pagi. Rabbi said, that's actually very interesting. So what is that saying? You could bake the loaves of the lechem aponim as well as the loaves of the shtei halechem. Where? Even outside of the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, now remember, I want to be clear. You're still on Harabayis. It's right outside the Azara, but you're outside of the Beis HaMikdash. Now here's the problem. If Rabbi Shimon is correct that when you bake the loaves of the mincha or whatever else, that the baking in the tanur is what sanctifies it, we have a problem. What's the problem, we'll say? Chutz la'azara. That the moment, ultimately, again, you're sanctifying the chalos, the moment you're sanctifying the loaves of the mincha, it's chutz, it's outside of the Beis HaMikdash, which by definition is a disqualification. So how could Rabbi Shimon hold that the baking sanctifies it and yet still simultaneously allow for the baking to be done outside of the Beis HaMikdash? To which the Gemara says, you're right, Amar Rava Ema, Shehei Hekdeshon L'Shem Tanur. Rather, Rabbi says, Rabbi, what it means is as follows. Look at Rashi, Shehei Hekdeshon L'Shem Tanur, 2 lines up from the bottom. Kishi Yakdishena L'Soles, when you go ahead and you sanctify the flour, Yomar Almanas Le'efosa Betanur Ani Makdisha. Person should say, I am literally, again, I am setting this aside on the condition that it be baked inside of the tanur. So ultimately, I will say, it is not the tanur that goes ahead and is makdishit, but rather what it means is a person, when he first designates the solas, is making a condition. I'm hereby setting this aside on the condition that it be baked inside the tanur. Good. Hari alai minchas ma'afa lo yavi mechsas. What's the next machlokis in the Mishnah? Person says, I'm going to make a minchas ma'afa, so can you bring partly loaves and partly wafers? So machlokes, the Rabbanon say no. Rabbi Shimon says yes. Tan Rabbanon v'chi sakriv kishetak. So the Gemara says v'chi sakriv. Paul says when you will offer kishetakriv la'asos davar rishus. So what we're talking about over here, when a person is offering up something optional. Something optional. So this is an optional mincha. So the Gemara says, Karban mincha. When the pasuk says Karban mincha, how do I know that if a person says, I hereby bring a minchas ma'afeh, which is the name of the mincha, shelo yavi mechza chalos u'mechza rekikin, that you shouldn't bring half loaves and half wafers. Talmud lomar Karban mincha. There was a pasuk says Karban mincha. Karban echad amarti lecha v'lo shnayim u'shlosha karbanos. I'm telling you, you should bring 1 karban and not 2 or 3 different types of karban. So what's this? The Rabbanan Darshan over here says karban mincha. Karban mincha means when you bring a karban mincha ma'afei tanur, it has to look one way, either loaves or either wafers. But you cannot mix and match the two. Amar Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon. So we'll say Amar Beis. Amar Rabbi Shimon. V'chi ne'emar. Karban shnei pa'amim. Rabbi says Rabbi Shimon, but 1 second. Does it say karban twice? In other words, does the pasuk say karban twice to teach you that loaves are reckoned separately than or differently than wafers? V'halo lo ne'emar ela karban echad. Torah only uses the word karban 1 time. V'ne'emar bo chalos urikikin. And I will say it says karban once, but yet it uses both lashonos of loaves and wafers. What do you see from here? The fact that it says karban once and it talks about loaves and wafers tells me what? Me'ata ratza lahavi chalos maybe, rikikin maybe. If you want to bring chalos loaves, you can bring loaves. You want to bring wafers, you can bring wafers. Mechze chalos umechze rikigin. And if you want to bring half loaves and half chalos, you can do that as well. And I've also, when you bring them all together, by the way, this is important. We're going to get into this later on in the Gemara. But what do? You bring everything together. Let's say, according to Rabbi Shimon, where you're bringing both loaves and wafers. You bring them all together. Bolalan, Shabbos said the way it worked by Karma Mincha, and we haven't seen this explicitly, but we will, is interestingly enough, you bake it off, you mix it together, you crumble it up, and then from that crumbling, you take the komets. So you see, the komets is not taken from necessarily just from the fine flour. We'll discuss this. We're going to see all of this spelled out in the Gemara later on. But I bake it off, crumble it up, mix it together, take the komets from there. Ubolalan, the komets mishnehem. And I take the kamitza from both of them. V'im kamatz v'ala biyado me'echadash ne'em yatsa. If it turns out, says Rabbi Shimon, so Rabbi Shimon's model, I can bring a carbon ma'afet tanner both from loaves as well as from wafers. I break them all up, I mix them all together, I take the kamitza from the mixture, and if it turns out that the kamitza is exclusively from one of the types, then guess what? That works as well. Rabbi Yossi Yehuda Omer, Minayin la Omer Harei alai minchas ma'afa, shelo yavi mechze chalos u'mechze rikigin. So Yossi Yehuda says, how do I know that if a person says Harei alai minchas ma'afa, Rabbi say that you can't bring half loaves and half wafers, rather you have to choose one or the other. Talmud Omar, v'chol mincha asher se'afe betanur, v'chol anase b'mercheshes v'al machvas, l'koin hamakribo so lo tihiyah, v'chol mincha belula b'shemen v'chareva l'chol b'nei aron tihiyah. My v'chol ha'amr l'mata. We'll say just like when it says v'chol, the word v'chol, later on, shnei minin chalukin, we'll say it refers to two different types of items. Af v'chol ha'amr l'mala, shnei minin chalukin. So too when it says v'chol above, we'll say it means two different types, i.e. rikikin and chalos, and rikikin and chalos are reckoned separately from one another. Rabbi Huda, I shop your Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Shimon is saying, good, what do you have to say to that? Amar lecha kevan dichsev, listen to this, bashemen, since the pasuk says ultimately again, bashemen twice, therefore what? Kiman dichsev karban dami. We'll say once it says bashemen, that's as if ultimately again it's saying carbon. To teach you that what? Both chalos and rikikin are reckoned as two separate types of karbanos. Rabbi Shimon, what does he do with the two? What does he do with bashemen? Ilok se bashemen. If it would possibly not have said bashemen twice, hava amina dafka mechze chalos mechze rikikin. This is amazing. I would have thought that maybe the ma'afet tanur dafka has to be half loaves and half wafers. Avachalos lechudayu urikikin lechudayu emalo. But maybe again, Abba said to bring a carbon exclusively of loaves or a carbon exclusively of wafers, maybe should not work. Therefore, again, Kamash Malon Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Huda. Sorry, Kamash Malon. No, Kamash Malon will say that is not the case, but rather again, you could bring all chalos, you could bring all rikikin, and Rabbi Shimon's matter, you could bring both chalos and rikikin as well. I said the Gemara says Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Huda Hailu Avua. Well, say isn't Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Huda saying the same thing as his father Rabbi Huda? Ike beinayhu di'i avid. Rabbi Yossi nafkamina between them is they'll both agree the lechatchila, the carbon mincha has to be either all loaves or all wafers. All loaves or all wafers cannot be a combination of the two. So what's the nafkamina? Rabbi saying what happens if you did it? If you went ahead and you brought such a carbon mincha, we'll say look at Rashi. It's the last Rashi in this parak. Ike beinayhu di'avad. Rabbi Huda deal of time make carbon echad the evet ksheros. So also according to Rabbi Huda, ultimately again, even though the chatchila you should not bring a carbon mincha that is a mixture of both loaves as well as wafers. If you did it bidi evet, it is kosher. The Rabbi Yossi dialef mi belula v'chareva kiechid di belula di minchas dav. So also according to Rabbi Yossi, even if you did it bidi evet, it is not kosher. So also the Gemara ends off by discussing this dramatic machlokas. Ultimately, again, between Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan. We'll say, how do we paskin? We paskin that a carbon mincha, we paskin against Rabbi Shimon, like the Rabbanan. Namely, again, that halacha l'maisa, a minchas ma'afei tanor can be loaves or can be wafers, but cannot be a mixture of the two. You have the right to choose what type of mincha you're going to bring, but you cannot mix and match between loaves and wafers. Good. Hadrin aloch kol ha-menachos. So both say, Mazel tov. Mazel tov, Mazel tov. Good. No time to, we're not going to gloat, we're just going to continue. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, great, good, well, so let's go right there. So Rabbi Shmuel says as follows. So we'll say, again, this is really a beautiful, beautiful parak. Rabbi Shmuel, we're going to deal now here with Karban Omer. This is actually really very, very good. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, Hayabah b'Shabbos. So let's listen to this. The Karban Omer. This is that the Karban Omer brought on the second day of Pesach. Karban Omer is unique, Rabbi say, why? Because ultimately, again, it's one of the only karbanos, aside from in Chasota, that is brought from barley. Karban Omer, remember again, its primary purpose is that it's matir chadash. It allows any grain that has grown since last Pesach to now become yashan and fit for consumption. So the Gemara says as follows. I will say now one other piece that's important over here. The Karban Mincha was one isaron of barley. Isaron is the measurement. One isaron of barley. So watch this. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, this is amazing. Omer hayabah b'Shabbos. Mishalosh sin. I will say now. Here we go. Now one isaron, right? One isaron of fine barley flour. So you don't get one isaron of fine barley flour from just going ahead and harvesting one isaron of barley. You obviously have to go ahead and harvest a larger amount of barley in order to go ahead and get the isaron of one isaron of fine barley flour. The shaila now is, let's say, so we'll say again. If the second day Pesach is a weekday, so fine, you can harvest as much as you want. What happens if the second day Pesach falls out on Shabbos? So now the Gemara says, Rabbi Shmuel Omer hayabah b'Shabbos mishalosh se'in ubechol mechamesh. What's very interesting? Shmuel says, if the second day Pesach fell out on Shabbos, they would harvest 3 se'in of barley. Whereas if the second day Pesach fell out during the week, they would harvest 5 se'in of barley. So Rabbi Shmuel, we'll explain this why. Rabbi Shmuel is saying is, on Shabbos, we're going to minimize the amount of barley we're going to harvest. Obviously, you're going to say harvesting anything on Shabbos is one of the Lametes Malachos. So Rabbi Shmuel, we're allowed to do it. We're allowed to do it for the service for a communal karban, but we're going to minimize. We're going to minimize the amount we're going to harvest. So during the week, 5 se'in, Shabbos 3 se'in. The Chum say no. Echad Shabbos ve'echad Chol mishalosh hayabah. Chum say no. There's no distinction between Shabbos and during the week. They would always harvest 3 se'in of barley in order to get 1 isaron of fine barley flour. Rabbi Chanina Skana Konim Omer. Rabbi Chanina Skana Konim says as follows: B'Shabbos, if the second day Pesach fell out on Shabbos, so they're going to harvest the barley. We'll discuss when they harvested the barley. Hayaniktzar biyochid ubemagal echad ubekupa achas. If the second day Yom Tiv was Shabbos, so they're going to have to harvest the barley. They would only have one person with 1 sickle and 1 kupa, 1 bag. One person did the job. Ubechol, if this happened, if second day Pesach fell out during the week, then b'shalosh kupos, b'shalosh magalos. Then Rabbi said, then what? B'shlosha, b'shalosh kupos, b'shalosh magalos. You'd have 3 people, 3 sickles. We'll say obviously 3 sickles means 1 sickle per person and 1 bag per person. So again, if it was Shabbos, Rabbi Shmuel says 1 harvester. If it was during the week, 3 harvesters. The Chum say no. Echad Shabbos ve'echad Chol b'shlosha b'shalosh kupos b'shalosh magalos. So we'll say Chum say no. Even on Shabbos, 3 harvesters, 3 sickles, 3 bags. So we'll say what you see over here is what do the Chachamim hold? What do the Chachamim hold? That there is no distinction between the Omer collection on Shabbos versus during the week. Right? According to the Chachamim, you are always harvesting 3 sa'ah in order to produce 1 isaron of fine barley, and you are always using 3 harvesters, 3 sickles, 3 bags, Shabbos during the week. So we'll see, here we go. Bishlam Rabbanan Kasavri Isaron Muvcha B'Shalosh Sin Asi V'lo Shna B'Cha V'lo Shna B'Shabbos. So we'll say, I understand the sheet of the Rabbanan, because the Rabbanan clearly hold that you can get 1 isaron of fine barley flour from 3 se'in of barley. So therefore, again, that doesn't change between Shabbos and during the week. El Rabbi Shmuel, my kasara. We'll say, what does Rabbi Shmuel hold? This is actually very interesting. I kasavar isaron muvchar lo asi ela mechamesh afilu b'Shabbos. Let's remember again. What does Rabbi Shmuel hold? Rabbi Shmuel holds that if the second day Pesach fell out during the week, then how much barley are you harvesting? 5 se'in. If it fell out on Shabbos, 3 se'in. I don't understand. Remember, we'll say, what is everyone agreeing on? Let's focus on what we agree on. What is everyone agreeing on? That halacha lemaisa, you need 1 isaron of fine barley flour, right? We also know that you obviously have to harvest a larger amount of barley in order to be able to get 1 isar of fine barley flour. Fine, so we're all on the same page with that. So the Rabbanan makes sense. The Rabbanan are saying weekday Shabbos irrelevant. All you need is 3 isaron of barley in order to get 3 sa'ah of barley in order to go ahead and get 1 isaron of fine barley flour. Rabbi Shmuel, I don't understand. You're telling me 5 sitting during the week, 3 sitting on Shabbos. So the Gemara says, "My kasavar, ikasavar isaron mufchar lo asi ela mechamesh." If you're going to say to Rabbi Shmuel, that what? That you could only get 1 isaron of fine barley flour from 5 sitting of barley, afilu b'Shabbos nami. The Rabbi was saying you have to be in the Karban Omer. So if you need 5 sitting, then harvest 5 sitting. Imi shalosh asi. But if you hold that what? That you can get 1 isaron of fine barley flour from what? From 3 sitting, then afilu b'chol nami. Then that should be the amount that you collect during the week as well. So we'll say someone hears, we don't understand the 5-3 distinction. I'll tell you why. Amar Rava, here we go. Kasav Rabbi Shmuel, Isaron mufchar below tircha asi michamesh. Betircha asi mishalosh. So here's the interesting distinction. Rabbi Shmuel says, you're right. Here's the difference. You can get 1 isaron of fine barley flour from 5 se'in of barley with relative ease. You can get 1 isaron of fine barley flour from 3 isaron of barley, but it requires more effort. Which I will say makes sense. Obviously, the larger amount of barley you have, the easier it is to get the fine flour. The less you have to work with, the more you have to refine it over and over and over. So therefore, again, he says like this, B'chol ma'isinan b'chamesh. Therefore, Bishmal says, during the week, we're going to bring 5 saw. Because again, why put in the extra effort to get the isaron of barley, of fine flour of barley? Let's just bring more barley. Bring more barley, we'll be fine. So b'chol ma'asin mechamesh dahachi shvicha, because dahachi shvicha milsa. We'll say ultimately again because this is better. Why is this better? Look at Rashi. B'chol ma'asin mechamesh dahachi shvicha milsa. Kach, first while line in Rashi. Kach meshubach hadavar davi isar mufchar tfei shin mamtzi mikol sa ela ma'at also solas dak hayotze rishon. So we'll say, so apparently what Rabbi Shmuel also saying is, when you take the 1 isar from 5 sa'ah, you actually end up getting a little bit of a better quality of fine barley flour. But again, the point over here is it's easier. There's less tircha involved. So during the week, harvest more barley. On the other hand, b'Shabbos mutav sheyarbe b'malacha achos b'harkada v'al yarbe b'malachos harbe. Well, this is actually very interesting. On Shabbos, what we would rather have you do is work a little bit harder with 1 malacha than engage in what? Multiple malachos. So Rabbi saying, when you have less barley to work with, so what do you have to do? Look at Rashi. Rashi says over here, mutav sheyarbe b'malacha achos, mutav sheychala pamim harbe Shabbos b'malacha achas kigon sheyrakit hagimel sein pamim harbe. So we'll say, if you have less barley to work with, so what do you have to do in order to get fine flour? What do you have to do? You have to keep sifting it. You have to keep sifting it. You sift and you sift and you sift and you sift. Now again, sifting is a malacha on Shabbos also. So Rabbi Shmuel's calculation he has as follows. Again, remember, let's be clear. You're allowed to do all of this on Shabbos because ultimately, again, this is a carbon seaboard. And the Torah explains the same way we offer up the carbon tamid. So you're allowed to go ahead and harvest the omer, even if the second day Pesach is Shabbos as well. Rabbi Shmuel has the following shikol. What he thinks about is like this. So here's my calculation. I can go ahead and do more malachos to get more barley. So we'll say, what are the more malachos? More harvesting, more sifting, whatever else is involved. Or I can harvest less and just do the same malacha over and over and over. Rabbi Shmuel seems to feel that it is preferable to minimize the number of malachos transgressed. I'm using that in quotations because you're not really transgressing anything, but we would prefer to minimize the number of malachos transgressed, even if I have to repeat the same malacha itself over and over and over again. Therefore, Rabbi Shmuel says, again, you could get fine barley flour from either 3 sin or 5 sin. With 5 sin, obviously, it's much easier. So during the week, we're going to go ahead and do the 5 sin because it just makes it easier. Shabbos, We'll say we're going to use a smaller amount of grain because the larger grain, the more grain you accumulate, the more malachos you have to do. Therefore, says Rabbi Shmuel, I'd rather minimize the number of malachos, even though you're going to have to sift that same flour more often, over and over and over. And that itself is a malacha, but I'd rather have you repeat the same malacha over and over and over than engage in multiple malachos. That's Rabbi Shmuel's shikol. So says the Gemara. I'm sorry.
Lachitas is not considered. It's considered each individual.
Yeah, each individual act of ktsira is considered to be its own malacha. Says the Gemara. Remember, Yosef. We'll see. This also goes into multiple people or not. So we'll see. So we'll say that's Rabbi Shmuel's logic. Rabbi Shmuel's logic just is we'd rather essentially have you engaged in the same repeated act over and over and over than engaging in multiple malachos. Therefore, minimize the shear of barley to be collected on Shabbos. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Amar Rabba. Sorry. Mutav sheyarbe melacha achas v'akad v'yarbe melachos harbe. Fine. Look at Rashi. V'yarbe melachos harbe sheyiktzor v'yizra v'yivror v'yitchon v'yiraki. So we'll say each piece of barley or whatever, each bundle of barley, we'll say requires all of these malachas. You have to cut it, you have to harvest it. V'yizra, you have to winnow it. You have to do bor, you have to separate out the psolas from the ochel or the ochel from the psolas. You have to grind it, you have to sift it. So you have to keep doing these things over and over and over. The more barley you have, the more you're going to have to be doing this over and over and over. Therefore, again, minimize the amount of barley, focus on performing one malacha, i.e. of sifting over and over and over, and you minimize the malachos of Shabbos. So it says the Gemara, 1 second. Amar Rabba, Rabbi Shmuel, Benosh Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, Amru Davar Echan. And we'll say, now watch this. So now we have Rabbi Shmuel on record essentially saying that when it comes to Shabbos, even though you're permitted to do something, if you could minimize the malachos, we prefer you to minimize the malachos. Okay, hold that. Now Rabbi comes along and says, by the way, Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shmuel Benosh Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka say the same thing. What did they say? Both said it's actually an amazing case. This Sanya. Arba'a sar shechalios b'Shabbos. Also, listen to this. Let's say Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos. Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos. So we'll say, so now remember again, what do you have to do on Erev Pesach? Right? Karban Pesach. We'll say, so the shaila is, what do you do with your Karban Pesach on Shabbos? So watch this. Arba'a sar shechalios b'Shabbos. Mafshit es ha-Pesach ad ha-Chazeh. Div Rabbi Shmuel Benosh Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. So listen to this. Rabbi Shmuel says that I will say essentially what you do is you shech the animal, and you skin it, you flay it up until the chest. So Rashi says, because we'll say if you flay the animal up until the chest, that allows you to what? That allows you to go ahead and take out the sacrificial parts, which will then be burnt on the Mizbeach that day. But we'll say, interestingly enough, you don't flay the rest. Why don't you flay? Well, okay, fine. You don't flay the rest. So the Chacham say, Achiyavshit eskulo. Chacham say, no, you go ahead and you flay the animal in its entirety. Right? In other words, flay the whole thing. So the Gemara says, okay, this is interesting. Mi lo amar Rabbi Shmuel Benosh Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. Hasam kol hecha de efshar lo tarchinan. Hachanami kol kevan de efshar lo tarchinan. So also listen to this. So the Gemara says, oh, what do you see from here? You see from here that Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka says, meaning, remember, what did we just say? Rabbi just said that halacha l'maisa, Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rabbi Shmuel ben Beroka, Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, Rabbi Shmuel Benosh Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. We'll say what's happening over here. That it sounds like what we're saying is we don't want you flaying the animal any more than until the chest. Why, Rabbi say? Because you don't need to. In other words, we're minimizing what you're doing on Shabbos. So remember again, I will say, here's what I know I have. What do I have to do on Shabbos? On Shabbos, I know I have to shech the Karban Pesach, and by extension, I have to offer up the sacrificial parts. I know that has to be done on Shabbos itself. I will say, am I roasting the Karban Pesach on Shabbos? Again, this is actually a very important point. No, I'm not roasting the Karban Pesach till Motzei Shabbos. So essentially, I'm going to do what I have to do on Shabbos to satisfy my obligations, and no more. I have to flay the animal ultimately again until the chest, get out the sacrificial parts. I wait till after Shabbos to do the rest. Shabbos say, so this seems to be Rabbi Shmuel l'shitaso, just like Rabbi Shmuel ultimately holds that by the Omer, I'm only going to go ahead and harvest 3 si'in of barley in order to go ahead and what? to minimize Chil Shabbos, so too again, I'm going to go ahead and only flay the animal until it's chest, get out the sacrificial parts, leave the rest till Motzei Shabbos. Because what do you see from here? Milo Amar Rabbi Shmuel Benosh Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, because Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, holds the same thing as regular Rabbi Shmuel, who both say, Kol Heichad de'efshar lo tarchinan. I will say, whenever you don't have to exert yourself unnecessarily on Shabbos, we don't exert ourselves unnecessarily. I don't have to flay the rest of the animal, so I won't. Therefore, again, hachinami, kevan de'efshar lo tarchinan. Therefore, I will say, so too over here, by Karma Mincha, we're going to say the same thing. I can get an isaron of fine barley flour from 3 se'in of barley, even though it would be easier if I had 5 se'in. So because it can be done with less tircha, less malacha, I'm going to do it. To which the Gemara will say, we'll just read this line, then we'll stop over here for today. Mimai, just the Gemara says, Mimai, how do you know to make that comparison? Dilma ad kan lo kamar bishmal hacha, ela deleka bizayon kachim. Aval hasam diika bizayon kachim, eimalacha kirabanan svirale. So I will say, those two cases are not necessarily comparable. Or as I will say, the Gemara wanted to suggest that Rabbi Shmuel of our case by Omer would ultimately agree with Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, by Karban Pesach. To which the Gemara says the two shitos are not necessarily in line with one another. Because Rabbi Shmuel might hold his shita where? By Omer, why Rabbi Say? Because by Omer you can get the job done with less malacha. Fine, that's an intuitive stance. I will say over here by Karban Pesach, there's an issue of bizarre. So let's analyze this. Why do the Rabbanan say you should flay the whole animal? Why do they say that? I will say why. Because the Rabbanan hold it's bizarre and kachim. The Rabbanan hold that it is a degradation for the Karban Pesach to sit there in a semi-flayed state for the duration of the day. Therefore, the Rabbanan say flay the animal in its entirety. Maybe Rabbi Shmuel would agree with the Rabbanan in that case, even though he holds for malacha minimization in other cases. So by Karman Omer, he may hold minimize the malacha because you can get the job done with less harvesting, get it done with 3 se'in. But by Karman Pesach, he might actually agree with the Rabbanan to say what? To say that you should flay the animal in its entirety. So we'll stop over here for today, but understand that we are leaving off in the midst of a raging machlokas between Rabbi Shmuel and the Rabbanan. Ultimately, again, when Pesach falls out on Shabbos, do we still bring the same 5 se'in or not? Which I will say really is representative of a much more dynamic malacha, which is when Yom Tov falls on Shabbos and it's something I have to do. Do I minimize the malacha, or does what I do on Shabbos absolutely mirror what I do during the week? In Eretz Hashem to be continued tomorrow.